Welcome back. In our previous notes, we talked about how to use a factored form polynomial to determine the zeros with their multiplicity. Now we're going to do the reverse. Now we're going to say if I give you the zeros, that means you should be able to write a polynomial for me. So, given these zeros, you should be able to write an equation for me. So if I have a 0 of 2, I want you to remember where that came from. Well, the factor, when you plug in 2, should be 0. So really, in the factor, I hope you were realizing that you're actually getting the opposite of what the 0 is. Because you see an x minus 2, and you were getting a 0 of 2. A 0 of negative 5 would mean, again, you had an opposite in the factor. You would have had an x plus 5 as the factor that created that. So again, I hope you were picking up on this along the way without me explicitly stating it, but a 0 will always have the opposite sign of its factor. Now, unfortunately, we can't leave it this way. Unfortunately, they do want it in standard form. So standard form means a big thing in this lesson is going to be foiling it out, because that's how we get things in standard form. So I get x squared plus 5x minus 2x minus 10, or once I combine those like terms, I get that. And that polynomial would have zeros at 2, negative 5. All right. Now this next one has 3 zeros in it. All right, so let's take a look at this. Well, remember, to create a 0 of 0, remember that's where we just had x. Okay, that x that was just sitting out front. Again, we had the conversation in the last notes. But so make sure you remember it works the other way too. A 0 of 0 means all I have is that x sitting there. A 0 of 1, again, the 1 takes the opposite sign in the 0, or in the factor, I mean. An x of negative 3, again, if that's our 0, the factor will get the opposite sign. And now the big idea is foiling this out. So I'm going to foil the 2 parentheses first. Okay, I'm going to leave that x alone first, and I'm going to deal with these. So x squared plus 3x minus x minus 3. Combine our like terms. All right, so now that x out front, I'm going to distribute that in. And again, I like to save that till the very end. Distributing that x in, think about it. All it's really doing is increasing the exponent by 1. So everything is going to gain an x. That's all that it looks like when you're putting an x in, is everything is just gaining 1 more x. All right. And finally, our last example, another one that has 3 zeros for it. So again, every one of them will take the opposite sign of the 0 that created it. So here we have 3 things, and we need to FOIL this out. Now, I'm going to FOIL intelligently. What I mean by that is I'm going to focus on these 2 that have opposite signs, because something kind of cool happens when they have opposite signs. So watch what happens when I FOIL these out. X squared plus x minus x minus 1. Then I still have the x minus 4 sitting at the end. Notice x minus x. So the cool thing that happens is those actually cancel out. And now what I'm left with is something that can actually FOIL again. So that's why you want to FOIL intelligently. If you FOIL those things with opposite signs first, you'll be left with two things that you can actually end up FOILing again. So x squared times x, well, add the exponents. 2 plus 1 leaves me an x to the third minus 4x squared minus x, then plus 4. And that is going to be your polynomial that gave you those 3 zeros. All right. So make sure you have all this written down, and then make sure you come and ask me if there's any questions you still have on these.